What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and one of the really fun things that we do here on the PikaPikaPaPa channel that I don't see anybody else doing, and I think it really helps kind of separate us in terms of, channels that really care about the data and watch trends and, try and keep an eye on what's going on at the macro level of the hobby, is behind the scenes. Right around the 15th of every single month, I record the prices for the top 20 singles cards for every single set that had a booster box in the XY era, in the Sun and Moon era, and in the Sword and Shield era. And I've been doing that since September of 2023. And what that's allowed us to do, if you've seen those videos, is we track the aggregate value of those cards, and it shows us when the market is spiking, it shows us when the market's starting to come down, and most importantly, it shows us when the market is starting to flatten out. And it has, in the past, been able to give us a good indication of when the market's about to break out, which is really, really cool. Matter of fact, I just did one here on the Sword and Shield era, and the Sword and Shield's been going absolutely nuts. But back in November, we were seeing patterns where we said, hey, listen, we've seen this pattern in the past. Traditionally, this means that the prices might possibly break out. We never speak in definitives because who knows? But we talked about that, and certainly the last couple months have been very bullish, not just in the Sword and Shield space, but overall. Now, I highlight those other three generations, but I also keep that same information for Scarlet and Violet. The only difference is in Scarlet and Violet, I include all the sets. I don't just do the sets that have booster boxes. I include specialty sets as well. Now, I think the value in having all of that for Scarlet and Violet is going to be at the end of the Scarlet and Violet era, right? Then we can do an aggregate for all of the sets and their prices for the singles cards and booster boxes. And again, we'll be able to compare that to the way, say, Sword and Shield moved at the end of its era, right? Like, we'll be able to do some like-for-like comparisons, which I think is going to be a ton of fun. And I think it'll help us, apply lessons from the past to the present to hopefully give us some idea of what might happen in the future. But it also allows me to do videos like today, where the last couple months things have been going absolutely crazy, not just in Sword and Shield, but also in the Scarlet and Violet market. So what I was able to do is I was able to go back and pull my charts from November and look at all of the top 20 singles cards from all of the sets in Scarlet and Violet. And obviously I recorded this information again right this month, January, around the 15th. So remember, when you're watching this, these prices are from the 15th. They could be up, they could be down compared to where they were then. But when you're doing a video series like this, it's very important to pull the data at as close to the same time as possible to keep it relevant. So anyways, but it's been interesting to see. So what I've been able to do is just to look at how these prices have moved just over the last 2 months. And as we go through this video, and we're going to talk about singles cards, the newer set, we're going to look at the top 10s. It's going to be really fascinating to see how these cards have moved. Now, before I shot this video, I did make one exception, and I went ahead and pulled the Prismatic Evolutions top 20 prices as well. So we have a jumping off point for that. So the final slide, we're talking about Surgeon Sparks, we're talking about Prismatic Evolutions, and things get crazy. But we're going to talk about every set leading up to that and have a ton of fun along the way with some really cool takeaways. Now, as I said, we do this a ton. We're really data heavy. If you've never seen this channel before, if you get into the video, you have fun, and you're into this, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Or if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. We got a small channel. We do a ton of work. Those two small things go a long way in helping us out, and I really appreciate it. So with all of that out of the way, let's start looking at the very first two sets. And you have Scarlet and Violet base, and you have Paldea Evolved. And look at what has been going on in terms of the prices of the top 20 singles cards in Scarlet and Violet over the last 2 months. It is up almost 50%. Now, the Pokemon Company International never announces like, hey, the reprint window for Scarlet and Violet is officially over, or there's no set in stone rule that 2 years is when it ends. But there's this kind of general consensus among the Pokemon collecting hobby that after 2 years, the odds of a reprint drop significantly. So what is Scarlet and Violet doing? We're in January. March is going to mark 2 years. I think a lot of people are getting very excited about the fact that maybe we're not going to see any more Scarlet and Violet. The broader market is moving very, very aggressively right now. There's some pretty cool art in Scarlet and Violet, so I think people are trying to snap it up when they think, hey, this might be a window of opportunity that is rapidly closing. And then we got Paldea Evolved over there, and Paldea Evolved is special for all kinds of its own reasons. And there's two things that I want to talk about. Now, last month I didn't do this Scarlet and Violet video, but 2 months ago we did it, and the actual top 20 singles cards in Paldea Evolved were moving the opposite direction. They were kind of moving down, and we said, listen, this set is 15 months old back in November. Like, is this an awesome buying opportunity? We knew the gem weights were really low. It's chock full of Gen 1 Pokemon with some amazing artwork, and we thought that might be a buying opportunity, and it's performed pretty well over the last 2 months ever since then. The other thing that's really unique about Paldea Evolved, and we're able to call out because, again, we have the information, I have the data, Look at the top 20 singles cards in Paldea Evolved. The number 20 card is at $12.29. Now, we'll see some newer sets where all of the top 20 cards are over $10, but think about Paldea Evolved, again, another one that's approaching that 2-year window. To put that in some perspective, if you look at Sword and Shield and the top 20 singles cards from all of the sets that have booster boxes, there are only 2 sets. Even with Fusion Strike booster boxes at $200, even with Lost Origin Fusion Strike at $500, Lost Origin up over $300 now. There's only 2 sets that have top 20 singles cards where all of them are over $10 each, and that's Evolving Skies and Chilling Reign. And here we are with Paldea Evolved barreling down on being 2 years old, and all of the top 20 singles cards are over $12. A really cool comparison from this generation to last, and something I absolutely enjoy doing. Now, I told you we would talk about some of the singles cards in the beginning, and these are the ones that I wanted to call out. You got the Gardevoir from Scarlet and Violet, which has just had just an amazing year playability-wise. Obviously, you have a Gardevoir from Paldean Fates, which has been doing really good, and this card is absolutely crushing it over the last 3 months, up about 100%, which is wild. Then you got the Miriam card, which pre-launch, that was the chase card for Scarlet and Violet base, right? This was a $100 plus card when the set first came out, and it went through the Pokemon pop and flop real hard, because up until about 3 months ago, you could have bought this card in the $15, $16, $17 range. Now it has responded miraculously, popping up about 80%. And then even on the far right, you can see that some of the lower name, lesser popular Pokemons that have amazing artwork like this, even they are performing really, really well. So it's just an interesting time for these early era Scarlet and Violet sets, because there's awesome artwork in them. And remember, the first 4 sets out of Scarlet and Violet had abysmal print quality, really low gem rates, which I think is going to help buoy them for some decent returns in the long run. Now, the next 2 that we're going to be looking at, Obsidian Flames and Pokemon 151. And don't sleep on Obsidian Flames. I think that is a very sneaky set. Now remember, you got the Charizard at the very top. This data was pulled on the 15th. That card is already over $70. It's got a really low print quality, so it's got a really low gem rate, which I think is going to keep that card in collectors' eyes for a long time. Obsidian Flames has that Ninetale as well, which has some awesome artwork. Like, there's a lot to like about Obsidian Flames. But then you talk about 151, and this is something that's really interesting to me. I actually think the 151 cards are kind of undervalued, and I know that's wild to say, but even the Sunzard at the very top, that thing is at $225. I mean, 151 is going to be one of those iconic sets that people are into for years and years and years to come. That card has a 40% gem rate, and then you get next to it, you have all the other awesome chase cards. The top 2 up there, matter of fact, let's just click over and look at them real quick. You got the Venusaur, you got the Blastoise, and both of them are holding right at the $75, $78 range, and they've been flat at that point for quite a while now. And in my mind, if 151 is going to be one of these absolutely amazing generational type sets, then I think it's going to end up with multiple cards up over the $100 mark, and I do think it's such a feather in its cap. Not great to pull cards that aren't of high quality, but if you're in the long run, if you're in this for your cards to grow and appreciate in price, I think that is a feather in that cap, and the Blastoise and Venusaur have really low gem rates as well. As I said, I wanted to highlight that Charizard from Obsidian Flames. I personally love the artwork. Very lucky to have a couple of these in PSA 10s that I pulled on my own earlier on. And you can see it's all the way up at $75, right at $76, at $75.99 right now. The other thing that's interesting is the Blooming Waters boxes are out in Costco now, and I kid you not, it is a bloodbath. It is absolutely wild. Matter of fact, my wife actually knew. She talked to a Costco employee. She knew where they were going to be the day before, and she said, hey, do you want me to drive out there and get it? And I told her not to go. I said, it's not worth it. I don't want you to get caught up in any kind of hullabaloo, and I can't believe we have to say those things about Pokemon cards. I can't believe I have to advise my wife not to go to Costco and try and buy this because people are acting a fool. I know this is an investment channel. I know that I'm always focused on long-term gains, but I can't condone it, and I think it's wild that people are actually, doing what they're doing over box sets like this. It's just not worth it in my mind. So, all right, I'm off that soapbox. But the next sets we're going to talk about right here, you got Paradox Rift and Paldean Fates. Now, remember what I said about top 20 cards being over $10. Well, Paradox Rift has that going on as well, but I promise you this is just the middle of the market going up. I promise this is going to come back down. Paradox Rift is also relatively new, going through a little bit of that Pokemon settling that we see in the beginning. But then you got Paldean Fates, and Paldean Fates is an awesome lesson for me. Now, when Paldean Fates came out, people liked it, but I wouldn't say that they loved it. And think about what's in there. You have a Mew, which when we look at the grading volume from PSA, Mew is always one of the most graded characters, so we know there's huge demand. You got a a Charizard at the top. We know specialty sets have this strong track record of outperforming other sets. And the supporting crew, you got the baby shinies, you got Charmander, Charmeleon, you got Snorlax, you have all of these other awesome ones in there. When you put all that together, it's going to be a hard set to beat. It really is. And I still think if you look at the Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer Box price, which is up there, is sitting at 150 bucks. I know 150 bucks is like 3x retail. I get it, but I still think that that has some opportunity for run in the long run. So when you think about it, here's everything I was talking about. I look for deep supporting casts when I'm looking for sets that have the ability to give like an outsized opportunity for growth. Sealed product is pretty much going to grow. You know that. The question is which ones are going to grow the most and which ones are going to give you the best return for your buck. And when I look at this, as I said, Mew, Charizard, you got Pikachu, Charmander, Charmeleon, you got another Mew EX, Snorlax, even that Iono card. Lots to love sitting there in Paldean Fates. And then Paradox Rift itself, this is one I kind of scratching my head over. The artwork is really fire. Obviously, you got Groudon there at the very top. You got Roaring Moon coming in at number 2. Remember, Roaring Moon was the chase card for the longest time. And here we kept saying, listen, it's not going to last long. The Roaring Moon is going to get leapfrogged, and it did. But then outside of that, Garchomp is a really popular Pokemon too. And then Iron Valiant, and then you got Plusle down there. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what this top 10 ends up looking like in the long run. Even Steelix down there. I mean, that is a card that's got some really awesome art. I just don't know if 5-10 years from now people are going to be so into it, you know, that these cards command a big premium. So we'll just have to see. But that's why we talk about it on this channel, and that is why we chart the information that we do. Next two sets we're talking about is Temporal Forces and Twilight Masquerade. Now, Temporal Forces, again, has some fantastic art in it. Matter of fact, I'll show you the top 10 in a minute. Some of my favorite artwork from the Scarlet and Violet era as a whole is in Temporal Forces. But my question is, does it have the name power? Does it have the big studs in there to hold it off for, again, the long run, 5, 10, 15 years? And we'll look at that here in a second. But then Twilight Masquerade, too. You got a couple awesome cards in there that we're going to see in just a second. But as we look at the top 10, let's see where the other ones are going to be. For me, I'm always trying to figure out, like, where's the other undervalued cards? I know at this point what cards are going to kind of be the highlights, the head ringers of this set. Like, what else do we have going on to give us that long-term future interest in it? So looking at Temporal Forces right here, Iron Crown and Raging Bolt are two of my absolute favorite artwork from the entire Scarlet and Violet era. I absolutely love them. And then you got Walking Wake, which is leapfrogged Iron Crown. You have 3 cards at the top with really strong prices at $62, $63, $95. Now, I know Raging Bolt is starting to come down a little bit, but you still have 3 cards with some really, really strong prices up there. Then it's supported, right? You got Ghastly, which I love that Ghastly card. You got Haunter, you got Gengar, you got Ghastly on it. Love the mashup there. The Gengar card that comes in at number 10 out of the top 10. I wish there was a little bit more heat to it. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of Morty's Conviction either, which some people call a Gengar card, which he's on there, so I guess you got to give it credit. But I'm always wondering, like, hey, 10 years from now, what are people going to be into in this set? So it might just be the awesome artwork. Love the Iron Crown, love the Raging Bolt. And the next one that we're talking about is Twilight Masquerade as well. You know, before Twilight Masquerade came out, I was completely and totally wrong. I loved the Greninja card, but I really loved that Eevee card. And I thought those two were going to be a very close 1 and 2, but Greninja came out, absolutely stomped everybody else into submission. Way up there, but now we're starting to see the Eevee card jump, and I think with all of the excitement around Eevee, Evolutions, all of that, I think there's still a lot of room for that Eevee card to run. And then I've shared this before, huge fan of that Blood Moon Ursaluna. I don't know why, I'm totally off base, I get it. It does remind me a little bit of the artwork from that Sleepy T-Tar from Battle Styles, except that Sleepy T-Tar is a $150 card, right? Blood Moon Ursaluna probably doesn't have quite as big of a fanfare as Tyranitar, but Twilight Masquerade is a much better set than Battle Styles, so it's going to be interesting to see where all of these kind of shake out. And I will say this, trainers have not had a great couple years, but this is a set where it's still really new, I get it, but these 2 trainers, the Perrin and the Carmine up there, have held their value much better than some of the other trainers we've seen in the past. So another really interesting thing to keep an eye on. Can this set be something that where the trainers get a little bit of love? The artwork is fire, so if any set can do it, Twilight Masquerade can. Next sets we're looking at Shrouded, Fable, and Stellar Crown. And Shrouded Fable, you know, outside of the Black Star promo where you have the Wood Grain Greninja, I think that's a very special card. I think it's an iconic card. Even if it ends up not being a couple $100s, you know, I still think that's a great card and I absolutely love it. But from an investment and from a long-term price growth appreciation standpoint, don't think there's a whole lot in Shrouded Fable. I do like my Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs that I have. That's just, I don't know, it's just flying under the radar enough that maybe 10 years from now, there's not going to be as much of it out there as there is for some of the other Pokemon Center exclusive ETBs, which might help drive value in it. But then you got Stellar Crown, right? Like, can the Squirtle and Bulbasaur, can it drive the set to greatness? Does it have the supporting cast? Well, as I said, when you're looking at Shrouded Fable right here, you know, you got Earthen Vessel, driven by playability there at the very top, and then you got two energies that are in the top 10. I love Cassiopeia, love that artwork, but again, trainers haven't been doing too hot. Pheasantipede, Drew Skull, you know, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to be there for the long run. I'm sorry if you're a huge Shrouded Fables fan, but I just don't think it's going to be there. It's certainly not something that I'm excited to have a whole bunch of singles of. That, when you get to Stellar Crown, listen, again, this is how personal bias comes in. I like the set. I like the cards. I like the artwork. My daughter's a huge Squirtle fan, so this set has a very special place in my heart. Terrapagos, I don't think we'll hold on to #1, believe it or not. We've seen that illustration rare Eevee take a big, strong jump. I think the Squirtle in time can do the same thing, but we'll just have to see. But then getting outside of those top 3, you know, you got a Hydrapple in there, you got Briar. Like, again, not a lot that gets me super excited about the long-term prospects of this set, unless Squirtle and Bulbasaur can absolutely crush it and kind of carry the set to greatness. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. And the next one right here, we get to the finals page, which is Surging Sparks and Prismatic Evolutions. Now, an interesting thing is, if you look at how Surging Sparks has moved month over month, you really can't, because when I first got this information in November was when the set first came out. But the interesting thing is that Pikachu at the very top came up aggressively, came down just a little bit, but it's been holding that north of $450 price point here for just a while. And I'm going to be honest with you, Surging Sparks I love because I'm a Pikachu fan, but I'm starting to become a bigger fan as more time goes on. The Latias, the Latios, you know, I just think it's got a lot of complementary cards that we look for in some of these great sets. I mean, think about Brilliant Stars, right? Brilliant Stars, you got 2 Umbreon Trainer Gallery cards, you got 2 Sylveon Trainer Gallery cards, you got an Arceus alt art, you got a Charizard at the very top, right? You think about Lost Origin, you got the Giratina alt art at the very top, you got the Aerodactyl alt art, right? You got 2 Pikachus in there. Like, a lot of these great Sword and Shield sets had a lot of really strong supporting cards to go along with those big chase cards, and Evolving Skies, my gosh, top to bottom is just a freaking stud. So when I'm looking at these new Scarlet and Violet sets, the ones that we're valuing at or above some of those other great Sword and Shield sets, I'm always trying to say, do they have the complementary players just like Sword and Shield did in some of their great sets? So it's going to be interesting to see. Now, Surging Sparks, like I said, love that Pikachu card. My daughter, both of them, got a Surging Sparks booster box for Christmas, and one of them was lucky enough to pull that Latias special illustration rare. Not going to grade a 10, but we're sending it away to PSA because it's a great memory from Christmas, so very excited for that. And the Silarouge card down there, I really like that one as well. Milotic, I mean Hydreigon. There's just a lot of really cool artwork in here, so it's going to be interesting to see how this set holds the test of time. And then, of course, Prismatic Evolutions. I don't know what to say. These prices are fresh off the press. I mean, the set just dropped. I think this is, I'm shooting this on a Sunday. It just dropped on a Friday. So this is about as high as we're going to see. I do expect these cards to come down in price. Really proud of the Pokemon Company for making an announcement and saying, hey, listen, I understand everybody wants this set. I understand we didn't print enough. We promise we're going to ramp production as fast as we can and as much as we can in order to get these cards and products out into your hot little hands to make everybody happy. I will say, with all of that, I still think it's going to be a high demand set. I still think the market's going to sop it up left and right, and I think it's going to command a high premium. So listen, that's what I'm saying. I have a ton of fun doing this types of content. If you want to see Scarlet and Violet more often, all you got to do is let me know in the comments. I can't always respond, but I always read them, and I'm happy to do more work because I do this for you at the end of the day. I hope you had a ton of fun, and if you did and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Hope you have an epic day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye.